So welcome to the session. Yeah, so let's get started. Of course, today it was pretty exciting, 3 hours of exhaustive listening to Ali as well as a lot of customers and a lot of product releases. I think the most exciting takeout for me was the possibilities with Databricks, right? And I'm sure you would agree with that. But of course, Databricks has to work with one of the most authoritative sources of enterprise data, right, which happens to be SAP. And that's why LTIMindtree, Databricks, and SAP, we have actually come together, because having a product is one thing. Of course, the product is generally available. We can download, we can do a lot of experimentation, so on and so forth. But how do we kind of accelerate the journey for our customers? Right now, that calls for the right strategy, right? And that is what exactly myself, Manas Nayak, I lead LTIMindtree's effort for data and analytics for UK and Europe markets, and I'm based out of close to SAP's headquarters in Germany. I have been in the data space for the last 25 years, and I believe this is probably the day when a lot of things are actually coming together, where SAP is moving from a traditional systems of record to systems of intelligence to systems of action, right? And that's where this partnership is going to be so critical.
Hello everyone, my name is Benjamin Matthew. I'm a product manager here at Databricks, working on this partnership with SAP. So actually bringing what you're hearing about seamless integration and SAP Databricks and this Delta sharing integration all to life. So super excited to be here with Manas. We're going to talk about how, regardless of where you are in your SAP journey, this BDC and Databricks integration can make a lot of sense for you based on your use cases.
Yep. Now, before we start, we'll run through a small little quiz. Anybody who can answer this question? Yeah, that's the right one, right? And of course, that was not the case a few months before, right? But post this announcement, SAP is trying to position as the most authoritative sources of data, not just ERP as a process, but the most authoritative sources of data. And because of that, the valuation has been gone manifold. I'll have one more small little quiz. How many end users are using SAP on cloud? Any idea? Okay. The true answer is more than 300 millions, right? We don't know. We may have applied for a holiday or may have done some transaction, or post this particular trip, I'll probably go and do my settlement, right? And for all practical purposes, 90% of these transactions are actually getting registered in SAP. So that way, I may not be logging into a sap.com, some kind of a portal, but I am an active user of SAP, and so are many customers and prospects like you. Now, metaphorically speaking, so while the California is building all these technologies, so that's, let's say, 39 million, the rest of the USA is actually doing some transaction in an SAP system, right? So that's the volume, that's the velocity, that's the variety we are actually talking about, right? Now, I started talking about SAP as being one of the authoritative sources of data, right? And they were very proud to call themselves as an ERP company, right? But progressively, they moved into multiple different technologies. They moved into CRM, right? Be it some of this front office transformation, lot to do with the back office transformation, big to do with supply chain. That's where the middle office transformation comes along. And obviously, when there are so many devices, they need to talk to each other, right? So that's where SAP also has put tremendous amount of investments, okay? Now, when all these processes and systems are generating a lot of data, and today we heard about the Databricks, right? So obviously, there has to be a lot of AI infusion, right, in terms of making a lot of these business processes really faster, right? And that is where the force is kind of coming along, right? So SAP is no longer going to be the most trusted authoritative sources of data. It is going to have a lot of AI which are actually running some of these processes, making these processes, number one, to run seamlessly, number two, definitely to run faster, right? And that's where the data backbone of SAP and the AI has to come together, right? And this is what has exactly happened. and the product is now generally available, ready to be used. I would request Ben to speak a few minutes about the product.
Yeah, so this is a quote from Ali, our CEO, post this partnership coming together. Essentially, we're really excited to help customers, help them unlock data intelligence on their SAP data. Speaking about product availability, Business Data Cloud, which is this new SAP product that they just released, was made available on AWS at the beginning of May. And GCP and Azure are coming as well. So I'll speak more about this during my session, but Manas, back to you.
Sure, thanks. Like I was telling, framing the right strategy is important. But again, our customers have invested into SAP for many, many years, right? Just as raise of hands, anybody who has been invested in SAP for more than 20 years, right? So customers have been traditionally invested into SAP, but again, SAP is also changing quite a lot, right? So there are different versions of SAP, on-premise, private cloud, public cloud, so on and so forth. So a lot of our customers orchestrate bulk of their business processes today on SAP. Now, there is also a significantly large number of customers are actually living on a hybrid ecosystem. What does it mean is they may be orchestrating the, let's say, a supply chain business process or a manufacturing business process on SAP, whereas a lot of the other functions, it could be a HR, it could be commerce, those are some of these functions which are being orchestrated on other technologies. But again, end of the day, when we need to create a 360-degree view of the enterprise and provide 360-degree view of a customer, 360-degree view of a product or anything, definitely the hybrid ecosystem is going to be very critical. That's where integrating the data from multiple systems, right, building an authoritative systems of intelligence, and of course, that will help us to run a lot of this AI workload that we're kind of talking today. Of course, there are a few other customers who are not using SAP, and for them, the choice is very simple. Today, we are going to primarily focus on customers who are on SAP and how they can reap the benefits of SAP BDC, and of course, touch upon the customers who are on a hybrid kind of a mode, right, who are orchestrating a lot of their workloads cutting across multiple systems and technologies, and how they can also reap the benefits of SAP BDC, which is nothing but SAP with embedded Databricks. I just touched upon that, but I'm not going to get into the details. But essentially, the customers are on various stages of their SAP evolution, right? So on the left, right, the traditional SAP, the ERP-specific functions, right? The ECC could be on an Oracle DB, any other DB, or it could be sitting on HANA. Similarly, it could be on-premise, it could be an SAP-enabled cloud, or the customers could be transitioning into a public cloud itself, right? And simultaneously, in addition to the core business processes, customers have also invested into, let's say, SAP BW, which is the heavyweight business intelligence utility coming out from SAP, and that also has got multiple variants. I'm not going to touch upon that, but what is the possibility when the business data cloud comes along, right? How the customers need to migrate, right? Or sometimes they can actually rewire, right? And subsequently, initially take the benefits of AI and subsequently change the heritage, let's say the SAP BW ecosystem into a lot of these data products, right? So that is the migration path that we are going to deep dive into detail. But else, I spoke about 4 strategies, right? And this is very much required, right? Number one, why, right? So what is the compelling reason for adopting SAP BDC, right? And obviously, we are not recommending anything which is a big bang style, that, okay, you invest multiple millions, millions of dollars, maybe 2 to 3 years, and get something done. Instead of that, there has to be a compelling reason in, let's say, one of the line of business, so on and so forth, and that is something that we need to figure it out. The second aspect is what, right? What it really looks for our customers and prospects, the how part of it, making it real, and last but not the least, ultimately, the budget has to be coming from somebody, right? And in this case, it is somebody sitting in the business. So how do you kind of build that kind of an ecosystem and create that excitement in our customer organization and with some of our prospects so that they get attracted to the overarching propositions of SAP BDC, the business possibilities and the outcomes that can be generated with SAP BDC, and of course, how do you kind of jumpstart this particular journey, right? So with this, I would invite Ben to first talking about the most compelling reasons and what the product actually looks like. Over to you, Ben.
Awesome. Thank you, Manas. Thank you. Awesome. So I just want to start by giving some background. Over the next 10 or so minutes, I'm going to talk about the various challenges that we're aiming to address with this integration between Databricks and SAP. And then to Manas's point, also give some product overview architecturally of what does this integration look like and how are we actually bringing everything together. So to start, like what problem are we trying to solve here? I was just at SAP Sapphire in Orlando and Madrid. I see some familiar faces actually. It was great to see you guys again. And across about 120 customer conversations, it was abundantly clear that customers need to blend SAP data with data from other sources to power some of these key business outcomes like financial forecasting, inventory management, supply chain optimization. And in order to do that, customers, they want to bring their SAP data into the context of the rest of their enterprise data platforms. Now, historically, enterprise data platforms haven't offered a native way to do that. So there have been various vendors that have come along and introduced ways for customers to do this through replication. And there are three common paradigms that we're starting to see for customers bringing their SAP data into their enterprise data platforms. The first being customers are replicating data from their SAP estate to some sort of customer-owned storage, whether it be object storage or a relational database, and then ingesting from there. The second being customers are using a database driver to query the source database directly and then copy that data into their enterprise data platform. Or the third being, which happens more often than you think, manual file transfer. Customers literally downloading data from SAP as a CSV and then performing a local file ingest when they're ready to bring that data into their enterprise data platform. Now, separately, this is for your enterprise data teams. Now, separately, very likely there is another kind of data team within your enterprise, which is very, very SAP-centric. These are practitioners who live and breathe SAP. And we're starting to see that more and more, these data teams also have use cases for analytics and AI. Recently I was talking to a finance leader at one of our customers, and he was telling me that they have this new brewing use case around spend management. They want to essentially be able to predict how much cash every BU will have on hand by the end of the quarter so they can perform reports and give some sort of dashboard report to their leadership. And in order to do this with the tools that they have in their SAP estate, they have to essentially, in his words, traverse a slew of software. They have to replicate data from SAP to some sort of application to perform blending, then replicate that data to an analytic layer and actually prepare this data for some sort of model training, then train a model, deploy that model, perform inference, and then replicate those predictions back to SAP to then perform downstream planning. As you can see, with every one of these replications, you have a replica that ideally has to be governed, and if not, who knows who has access to that copy. And that's when things can get really dangerous and out of hand, and you have really no idea where your data has been sprawled out across your enterprise. Now, between these two patterns, between what we're seeing with enterprise data teams as well as your SAP-centric data teams, we can almost generalize this problem to, there are various replication pipelines from SAP to your enterprise platform, whether that be in Databricks, SAP, or elsewhere. And for any key business outcome that you want to onboard, you need a replication pipeline that can support that, whether that SAP data be from Ariba, SuccessFactors, your ERPs like ECC, S4. And for every one of these replication pipelines that you onboard, you now have another resource that needs monitoring, maintenance, investment. But at the end of the day, ultimately, some of these replications are going to break. They're fragile. And when things do break, that's when things get really messy, because now you don't have access to live, up-to-date data that you can make decisions on. Your leaders can't make real-time decisions. Your data engineers then have to be deployed away from high-value use cases to actually fix these pipelines. And then your analysts can't deliver net new insights because they don't have access to live data. And this is one of this pattern is where we really start to see the common thematic challenges that customers are facing with replication from SAP. The first being ultimately the most important, governance. When you create replicas of data, you now have these versions of data that are floating around your enterprise, And you can't audit who has access to it, what downstream assets have been created, and this just becomes a mess. It gets very dangerous. With regard to silos, as soon as you create a replica of data, you now have a shallow copy. And if these pipelines fail, now you only have reference to old data, stale data essentially, and you can't deliver net new insights. On costs, you now have operational costs and opportunity costs. Operationally, these pipelines need to be fixed to deliver live data. That's valuable engineering hours and dollars. The opportunity cost is your business is at a standstill, and your leaders can't make decisions, your analysts can't deliver net new insights. On semantics, when you use especially a database driver, you're accessing the raw data from SAP. And what makes SAP data especially valuable is that semantic layer. And if you can't replicate that semantic layer, then that's additional work for you to actually rebuild those semantics. On performance, when you use the database driver, you introduce additional strain on your source databases. I've heard directly from customers that some of their source ERPs are about to tip over because of how much strain they're under. And on compliance, a lot of these third-party replication platforms are actually relying on interfaces within the SAP estate that are not compliant with your SAP license or recent SAP support notes. So this partnership aims to address each of these challenges so that customers don't need to worry about pipeline plumbing and instead can focus on pouring into the insights that you get when you blend your SAP data with data from your other sources. I want to walk you through the various architectural components that actually bring this partnership to life. And there are 4. So the first is SAP Business Data Cloud. This is what Manas was alluding to before. This is essentially a new analytics platform for the SAP estate that brings your SAP applications to the cloud. So you have SAP DataSphere, SAP BW, SAP Intelligent Apps, and SAP Analytics Cloud. The second component is SAP Curated Data Products. These are SAP managed gold level assets that, essentially SAP will manage pipelines from your source systems, like your ERPs and your line of business applications, run that raw data through a series of transformations, and land those gold level assets in the managed storage layer of SAP BDC. This is object storage. It's not HANA, it's object storage. And once those data products are delivered, it can then be used by the rest of the enterprise. The third component is this delta sharing integration between SAP and Databricks. So now, in a fully governed manner, through Unity Catalog, any Databricks user can read data that physically lives in SAP. You don't have to physically replicate data from SAP to Databricks. Rather, through this technology, delta sharing, it's an open protocol that Databricks has popularized, you can read data from Databricks without actually physically replicating that data from SAP. And this integration is bidirectional. So SAP users can read data that lives in Databricks, and Databricks users can read data that lives in SAP. And the fourth component is SAP Databricks. This is a new flavor of Databricks that we've introduced in the SAP BDC landscape. It is essentially the AI and analytics engine of the SAP estate. This is not meant to replace your enterprise data platform or your native Databricks account, but rather be that AI and analytics engine for your SAP practitioners who have these AI and analytics use cases. So I want to bring this back to the underlying challenges that we've been aiming to solve with this partnership. The first, with regard to governance, now through Unity Catalog, we allow you to fully govern any SAP asset that you've chosen to make available to your Databricks landscape. With regard to silos, through delta sharing, this is a protocol that now allows you to read data live in place. So no longer do you have to rely on replicas as a way to access SAP data. Rather, you can use delta sharing to read that data that physically lives in SAP. On cost, SAP is waiving egress charges when you use this delta sharing integration to read data from SAP in Databricks. Traditionally, you may have been used to paying premium outbound. This no longer applies, given that now we're using delta sharing as a way to access that SAP data. On semantics, through curated data products, now SAP is providing us all the rich semantics that make SAP data so valuable, and Databricks can read that rich semantics to deliver it in context through Unity Catalog. On performance, Delta sharing is an open protocol that's been proven to scale with query volumes, data volumes, and is used by thousands of customers in production. And then lastly, on compliance, this is now the blessed path to read SAP data live in an enterprise data platform. No other data platform on the market can say that they have this exclusive right to read live data from SAP in that data platform in a governed manner. So now I want to dive a little deeper into this architecture I showed you before, specifically on SAP Databricks. You know, what is this product? What functionality does it have? What are its intended uses? Architecturally, the resources for this application are fully managed. So it's serverless, managed storage is provided by SAP. This is an SAP application in the BDC estate. This application is also fully integrated with your SAP estate. So you can integrate it with your SAP identity services. You can use SAP SSO. It's actually provisioned through the SAP for Me admin tool of SAP BDC. Those are walkthroughs that I'm happy to give after the conference, or you can also talk to your SAP account team about. And then lastly, you know, what workloads do we aim to address with SAP Databricks? Well, it's really like the one I described before. Your workloads that need AI and analytics and are really focused on SAP-centric data. Most of the data gravity is in SAP for that workload. That's where we really see the role of SAP Databricks shining. So I'll give some examples, like financial forecasting. You may have cash flow data that sits in SAP, and you want to perform a forecast. Through some of our forecasting functions, whether it be in a custom notebook or an AutoML, you can actually build that forecast directly in SAP Databricks, and then perform some downstream planning in the rest of your estate. So that data could then be shared to SAP Analytics Cloud, and you can perform planning there. I'm personally very curious about the use cases that you guys have or things that you may be struggling with. Would love to understand and help explore how SAP Databricks can help solve those AI and analytics use cases. Now, pulling back, you know, we're here at Data and AI Summit. A lot of the folks here are using Databricks. So for this partnership, we also wanted to empower those who already have Databricks instances to connect to these SAP estates and Databricks estates. And that's what this Delta sharing integration that you're seeing in the middle of the screen is really doing. If I have a laser here, yeah, right here. So this is an integration that we are aiming to ship by Q3 of this year, allowing you to connect your SAP Business Data Cloud to Databricks, so your existing Databricks instance can actually read your SAP data. So, you know, again, looking ahead, I'm very, very interested and invested and want to make sure that we're successful in helping you onboard SAP-related use cases to your Databricks estate, whether it be through SAP Databricks or native Databricks. Would love to chat after the session, after Summit, and see how we can help you be successful. So with that, happy to hand the baton over back to Manas, who will walk us through the how of how LTIM is making this all come together.
Thanks, Ben. So yeah, so I think the intent is very clear, and what is the product offering, that's also very clear. So now the question is, how do you kind of make it real, right? So to give you an example, there are a couple of use cases that we have picked up, right? The first one is, think of a customer who are orchestrating majority of the business processes using a lot of these SAP systems, right? So the ERP part of it, as well as Concur, Ariba, many more, okay? Of course, a lot of these customers have built an SAP-heavy data analytics ecosystem, right? And of course, with the new BDC feature coming along, there has to be a proper accelerated migration path, right? And that is something that we are trying to show on the right-hand side, right? So you see here it is all SAP Business Data Cloud with the various respective components. But the migration path, as we understand, is number one, all the objects on the left, which is already existing in your on-premise or on-cloud SAP BW, right? So this is something that it needs to come into the SAP BW private cloud edition, right, into a layer called provisioning layer. And after that, it needs to come into the HANA Lakehouse files here, right, and in the form of data products and object store. And from here, Yeah, so from here, it will come into the real data products which can be consumed by the lines of business, right? So that's pretty much a tabular format, queryable format, a friendly queryable format, as I will call it. And last but not the least, on top of this, right, how do you kind of activate a lot of these AI/ML use cases? So that's where the native connectivity is going to be very, very useful, right? So in this case, imagine a customer, right, who has got a lot of SAP estate and they are just modernizing their SAP ecosystem. They can still modernize the entire analytics ecosystem with SAP Business Data Cloud, right? So they can run every possible operational report, analytical report, leverage AI/ML, and build a lot of these agentic apps on top of this, right? So it's pretty much gives you a clear path, right? A migration or a modernization path if you are an SAP heavy customer with SAP heavy workload, both from your core business process perspective as well as from an analytical perspective. Now move to the second situation, which is a bit more hybrid in nature, right? And why it is hybrid, as you can see here, a lot of these business processes are running on SAP, but you also have, let's say, some of the CRM processes running on Salesforce, right? Maybe some of the commerce processes running on IBM Sterling, plus, let's say, a lot of third-party other data applications like ServiceNow, ADP, so on and so forth, okay? And eventually, we need to create the 360-degree view, the real view of the enterprise. We need to connect the data from variety of systems, right? And of course, when we are talking about an agentic interface, there could be certain business processes which could be cutting across multiple of technologies, right? And therefore, getting the data, standardizing it, right, and ensuring the agents are actually able to operate in a seamless kind of a manner, that is what is becoming very, very critical. Now, in this particular case, what should be the modernization path, right? So again, I mean, I'm not going to use any clicks. You can see a very seamless kind of a modernization path, and this is kind of a drill down version of what Ben has already kind of spoken about, right? So as on the left is the SAP Business Data Cloud, where we could orchestrate every possible workload coming from an SAP ecosystem, right? And of course, activate the AI/ML using Databricks. And there are customers who have already invested into Databricks, and they're probably getting data from a lot of these non-SAP systems, right? That can continue to flow into the data intelligence platform standalone, right? And you could create a lot of these insights on top of that. And if there are workloads which calls for blending data from SAP as well as non-SAP, that's where the number 5, which is the delta sharing, is going to be very, very useful, right? Now, let me give you some of the real examples. Yeah, so I also have got a non-SAP path, right? Maybe there are customers who are on a very, very heritage data ecosystem, not to talk about a lot of the heritage technologies on the left. But again, for this set of customers, we can simply activate the standalone Databricks to get the benefits of the data intelligence platform. Now, let me give you some real examples, right? Again, this is for the first pattern where the business process is orchestrated using SAP. And for simplicity, I have taken a finance business function. So you could see the finance data domain. And obviously, a lot of these business processes are orchestrated on SAP. It could be a single instance SAP, multiple instances, right? I have heard of customers who do have, let's say, 30, 40, 50 different SAP systems, right? Be it for the core transactions, the planning, and it varies from country to country, geography to geography, cluster to cluster, very, very superly massive complex kind of an ecosystem. But luckily, it happens to be in the world of SAP. So again, we get every possible data elements, the core data elements from a transaction perspective, the core data elements from a master data perspective, and convert all of this into the real data products inside SAP BDC, right? So that's the option. And obviously, once the data products are ready, the core data products are ready, we can actually activate a lot of these insights data products, right? For example, would you like to see what is the sales, right? What is the quantity, what is the cost, what is the buying behavior, and all of that, right? But so far, whatever I told is, again, the traditional modernization, right? If you're running your business intelligence on traditional SAP technologies, how do you kind of put it into SAP BDC, right? But the art of possible is actually right on the top, right? So I have a customer who are really worried about the price volume mix, right? So imagine a customer with 1,000+ SKUs being sold in 100 plus different countries, right? And if it is a regulated kind of a product, obviously there is a lot of scrutiny that is kind of happening, right? Your tariffs things, the taxation, if the price, the raw material price could increase in one of the geographies, the taxation could be different in different geographies, right? So the price is changing, and then from a sales and marketing perspective, you are doing a lot of this volume planning, right? So how much product, how many SKUs I need to sell in a specific market so that I'm profitable, right? So a lot of simulation is something that the business is continuously kind of doing, right? Now, obviously, in the past, like Ben touched upon, all this data had to be replicated into a non-SAP kind of an ecosystem. I have had a customer who was pretty much, let's say, they had the traditional SAP BW, but they used to copy the data into Oracle systems, into Hadoop systems, into Exasols, and many, many more systems. And again, depending on the end user persona, right? Every department was doing a lot of copy, right? And those are the challenges that Ben kind of highlighted, all the boxes in red, right? So now those red boxes have turned green, and with SAP BDC, we could actually do every possible simulations. And what I'm trying to tell here is just some examples, high-level examples and the possibilities. And you could imagine with all of this, how much you can gain in terms of your time to market, in terms of cost to deliver some of these insights, right? So what used to take maybe for weeks and months can probably possibly be done in hours and let's say few days kind of a time, right? So this is again a pure play SAP heavy ecosystem. This is looking a little complex because it also has got blends of SAP as well as non-SAP. And I have taken a typical but very, very complex CPG use case, which is called OTIF, on time and in full, right? So imagine if you are a CPG company, you are selling through the dealers, the distributors kind of a network. So that's number one. And if a big retailer has put a huge order for multiple SKUs, and that needs to be delivered through, let's say, 30, 40 different stores or warehouses, right? All of that needs to be measured and monitored. We cannot make a big distributor, right, a big 5 distributor in US or Germany kind of unhappy because they are not getting the right quantities at the right time, right? Similarly, think about the consumers like you and me. Most of the CPG companies are also now becoming kind of retail, right, big time, right? So there, again, the consumer persona is very, very critical, right? Now, Ben could be buying high-end products, right? High-end products, highly profitable products. Now, I could be buying when the products are only on discount, right? So assume that, okay, he puts an order, right, and he needs that order to be delivered in 3 days' time, and I may put exactly the same order, right? But imagine it's a heavy crunch kind of a situation, right? The sales volume are very, very high. The overall, let's say, supply chain ecosystem is stressed, right? So the organization need to take a decision because Ben is a high-value customer, right? All these products need to be delivered to Ben right on time and in full. And they may take a liberty with me that I may get, let's say, something today and the next set of items tomorrow. So those are the decisions that are now being made in real time by a lot of the CPG customers. And the moment I talk about CPG customers, each one of them are probably a $10 billion kind of a customer if we talk about some of the top CPG customers globally, right? Now, you could imagine in the heritage world to create this OTIF, and again, though it is just a single KPI, right, it has got multiple variants, right? And again, I've just tried to call out some of the simple things, right? So in the past, creating this itself could take you few days and few months, right, depending on the complexity. The complexity could vary from market to market, right? So many systems and processes needs to be integrated, all of that. Now, all of this you could imagine can be orchestrated on the pattern number 2 that I kind of called out, right? Anything that is SAP heavy workload, right, can easily be done using BDC, and anything which calls for blending the data from SAP and the non-SAP ecosystem, right, we can continue to kind of build it using the standalone Databricks, but obviously the standalone Databricks and the SAP ecosystem are seamlessly exchanging data, right, through the zero copy framework that we have, right? Now extrapolate this to variety of use cases that we are trying to solve for our customers, and that's where the question is, how do you kind of fast track this journey, right? We cannot afford to take years together, months together to build hundreds of data products, and then take advantage of AI, right? Or let's say the Databricks that got announced today. So fundamentally, what I'm trying to showcase here, and again, not to go to the details, I just have 4 minutes left. So essentially, we need to understand the process value chain, the business value chain of our customers at a high level, right? Obviously, I've seen process value maps which runs into multiple pages, but again, at a high level, these are the various process value chains. These are the most complex use cases that the customers are trying to solve. High value use cases, right, that customers are trying to solve. And I think Ben spoke about a procurement function, right? So I spoke to a procurement officer who was responsible for close to 20 billion worth of procurements globally, right? And he had 600 plus procurement specialists in his team, and they were really struggling, right from the basic quality of master data all the way up to the right level of intelligence and information, and obviously running, let's say, analytics and AI on top of this was not happening, right? But now, if you can identify across this particular function, be it a supply chain function or a procurement function, if you plan to kind of elevate the game with 1 or 2 use cases, right? So that is where the funding is going to come from, right? And we will definitely need to follow a fast-forward kind of an approach. We may fail sometimes, but let's iterate. Let's build it for this particular customer, and let's demonstrate the value of SAP BDC, which is SAP with embedded Databricks. And obviously, depending on your business function, the customer's business function, we could quickly come and create this value chain for you. We could quickly identify some of these use cases that are going to provide, let's say, the maximum ROI with the least kind of an investment. So that is the bit of advisory exercise we are kind of happy to do with you. Depends on the industry that you belong to. Obviously, what I have given you are just a couple of examples, right? So with this, we come to the end of the presentation. I'll just take maybe 1 more minute to talk about LTIMindtree. We are an allied partner for Databricks, and we have been not only kind of spending a lot of effort in terms of building the right degree of competency. For example, we do have a champions program, and a lot of our champions are actually solving some of these most complex problems, which is happening at the intersection of both function as well as an industry function as well as technology. So that is the problem that we're kind of solving. Obviously, there are a lot of case studies and credentials, and I'm happy to say, without naming the customer, some of the billboards that we are seeing in this campus, right, we have been part of those customers in terms of their data and AI journeys. We do have a lot of solutions and accelerators that we can definitely talk about, and obviously, to elevate the game,
yeah,
I would request Ben to finish up in style.
Yes, and super excited. Oh my God, that's not a difficulty that is not technical. Yeah, also just want to congratulate LTIMindtree for being a business transformation partner of the year. LTIMindtree is a great partner to Databricks, and together we're happy to understand your use cases and see, together how we can help empower what you are trying to do. Awesome.
Any questions? We do have just 1 minute left.